my sister and I lost our mother when she was only 12 months old or something, and I was just three, from undiagnosed bowel cancer. And so I grew up longing to know who she'd been. I think out of a sense of wanting that understanding of place, really, my story. It wasn't that others didn't step in. I wouldn't want to say that for a moment, any more than you would say. You've just said you loved both of the women who raised you. Mm-hmm. But there's an interesting aspect of it that I'd like your views on. No fault of my father's, but there wasn't a mother there for me to watch and learn from in terms of how a man should properly and respectfully treat the number one woman in his life. That role modelling seems to be incredibly important, but maybe particularly even more so from boys. They're maybe less cerebral on these things than girls.
Can I ask you a question? And maybe I know this, forgive me if you've told me before, but did your father remarry?
No, he didn't.
So did you ever feel sort of a hunger or a longing to be loved by a mom? Did you ever want a mom?
Oh, yes.
Up? What was that like?
It was a very big black hole, something quite serious missing. Mm-hmm. Even though, as I say, there were plenty who stepped in. My grandmother had an aunt, we had nannies, we had all sorts of things. Great that Dad didn't foster me and my sister out.
Wow.
He kept us with him, didn't try and find someone else to, and I'm very thankful that he didn't. I can see that looking back, you know.
Right.
But of course there was. And then there was that role model issue. It was another man, really, who I still revere, who drew me aside and said, let me give you some tips on the right way to respect and honour somebody that I know he could see. I think you're interested in. That's not a criticism of my father.
Yeah.
But it's to say there were two holes there.
Yeah.
You know, who was mum?
Yeah.
How do I understand myself properly? And the second one. So that's innocent in a sense. You know.
It's interesting because we have a couple studies. So you lost your mother to tragedy. And obviously it created a hole and a deficit in terms of that craving of maternal love. And it's interesting because the world of family redefinition, or the kind of the gay marriage world, would say, well, that doesn't matter, right? 2 men, 2 women, as long as children are safe and loved. But you are safe and loved. You had the love of your father, and yet you craved.
And those who looked after me, I have to say that.
Right, so you had this community, right, that was caring for you, but you still craved the love, the maternal love, right? The love of your mother. And so to me, it's like, it's so very clearly self-evident that this is what human children want. And we have to bury it. We have to bury that reality for the sake of advancing and validating adult identity and adult desires. And I'm not just talking about gay adults. I'm talking about heterosexual couples that want to have a casual divorce, right? Or heterosexual couples that want to use a sperm or egg donor to create a child in the name of treating fertility, or a single mother by choice or a single father by choice who want to create a child using reproductive technologies. And yet it's so obvious, like when you just look at the bare bones evidence of who children are and what they want to be loved by their mother and they want to be loved by their father. And we have to do an awful lot of politicking and explanation to wish that away. So the other thing that's interesting is children used to lose their mothers or fathers by tragedy a lot more than they do now. We used to have generations of children that lost their fathers to war. We used to lose mothers much more routinely in childbirth. But the birth of modern warfare and modern medicine means that we don't lose mothers or fathers to tragedy as often. So you experienced that. There's less of that today. But what we do have is children losing their mother or father due to intentionality, because some adult wanted it that way, whether it was a mother or father who was unwilling to do the work of repairing a marriage, whether it's a same-sex couple that's intentionally creating a child to be motherless or fatherless. And there's a difference. There's actually a difference in how children go about being motherless and fatherless and the impact that it has on them long term. So you lost your parent to tragedy, to death. And we have a couple studies that show that children like you who lose a parent to death tend to fare better than children who lose their parent through divorce.
And I can tell you exactly why that is.
Why?
And I'd test it with you anyway.
Test it.
Because there was the grief and the sadness and the sense of loss and why can't I know my mum? But there was no suggestion that somewhere, she is a bit like a father dying in a war on the battlefield, that somewhere that parent's out there but doesn't care enough to be
Yes.
involved in my life.
That's exactly right. She would be there if she could.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I realised a long time ago, there's a fundamental difference in
Yep.
that.
There's a fundamental difference with, I lost my mother, but she loved me and she didn't want to go. And I lost my mother because she ran off with her boss and now she's started a new family and she lives in Florida, right? There's a difference there. The other difference is when you as a child looked back on the memory of your mother, who else remembered her fondly?
Well, my father
Yeah. And probably,
and my sister. But although she was so young when it happened.
but she could identify with you and everybody in your world, the grandparents and the aunts and uncles would say, oh, John, she was so wonderful.
They did.
Yeah.
They've only just stopped because they're all passed on.
Right.
I lived with people telling me what my mother was like,
Yeah.
which only deepened the longing. I wish I'd known it.
But they all joined you in your grief, right? They all joined you and
Yeah, yeah.
validated your loss. Whereas when you look at a child who has lost a parent to divorce, very often they're the only ones that look back and say, I mourn what I didn't have, right? I wish that I was still living with my mother and my father. I wish my mom and dad were still married. I wish that she still lived in Wyoming and not in Florida. But if they voice that, a lot of the people around them, their own mom and dad, or the people around them might say, oh, you wouldn't want your parents to be unhappy, would you?
I was going
Right.
to come to that.
Right. Or, oh, well, you know, your mother has actually like found her true self now. Or, oh, you're better off. I mean, do you remember how much they were fighting? And so a lot of times the child in the situation of divorce, or I would argue in the situation of a third-party reproduction, you know, family structure, the child is very often isolated in their grief. There's nobody else that's validating them or joining them into it. They might be the only one that looks back fondly on the home that they used to have that is now gone. And so that is hard because you bore an incredible burden, but you didn't bear it alone. Children who lose their parent to intentionality, not tragedy, still have a burden. They're just very often isolated and trying to process it completely solo.